Welcome to this episode of
Here We Go, Frigo!
starring Maria Robertson and Dr. Paul Frigo.
Hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of the DPS podcast, Here We Go, Frigo. I'm Maria Robertson, Director of Community Engagement, and joining me is Superintendent of Decatur Public Schools, Dr. Paul Frigo. Hi, Dr. Frigo.
Hello, Maria. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. I wanted our listening audience to know that we are doing this interview in person, yes, but we are practicing social distancing. We're over 6 feet apart. We are both masked, and so if we sound a little muffled, that is why. But we want to model and also be safe as we do this work.
It's not as horrible as it is. It has made me focus more on the speaker, as these masks do lend itself to having a little bit filtered sound to it. But before we start, I'd like to remind all of our families listening that online registration is currently taking place for returning students online. So for those of you who haven't registered, you can do so at dps61.org/registration. Again, that's for returning students. Families who are new to DPS can contact Student Services by calling 217-362-3060. Well, as we all know, the district came to the decision to start the school year with 100% virtual learning during the first quarter. This week, we're going to talk about why the district ultimately came to this decision over starting school in person and answer the many questions and concerns families have going into this upcoming school year.
Okay, well, let's get started.
All right, Dr. Frigo, what can you tell us about the meetings that took place with the teachers, the teaching assistants, principals, staff members, district leaders, parents, and students that came to make the decision for starting the school year?
Well, we had numerous meetings throughout the summer, and being educators, we were trying to figure out a way to have in-person learning of some facet, because it's counterintuitive as educators for us not to want to be around kids.
Right.
But as we progressed, new data came in, and we started looking at all the things required to have our students and staff operate in a safe and healthy environment. We came to the conclusion the best decision for everyone involved, and as well as our community, was to be a remote learning format.
I know that spoke to the internal stakeholders at DPS. I'm aware that you also participated in weekly conversations with city officials and health officials. Tell us a little bit about those phone calls.
Well, anytime questions would arise or we needed information on what's going on, whether it's the health department or the city, even the park district folks as well have been very helpful in trying to make this decision and what resources may be out there to support our families through this difficult time created by this pandemic.
Awesome. I know some parents have concerned with the decision to go full virtual and that students may fall behind. What can you clarify how virtual learning will still allow students to positively progress?
Well, the virtual learning we're implementing this fall is much different than what we did in the spring.
Oh, good.
It's more targeted. It's much more structured than what we did in the past. Also, there's an expectation of students will receive grades at this time, where in the spring it was clear that nothing could hurt their grade, it could only help their grade. So there's a variety of factors there. But also, just so parents know, we're going to be focusing on the grade level standards that are required for students to progress properly at whatever grade level they're working at. So we understand that, and we have all hands on deck to support our students during this time of virtual learning.
Okay, that's great. I know some community members noted how, according to science, children are at the low risk of COVID transmission. Can you explain why it was important to start off with full virtual learning for the first quarter, regardless of this fact?
Well, there's a lot of different studies out there, but what we're using localized data, Central Illinois data, And as people are aware, we're seeing more and more young people getting COVID-19. And also those young people go home to families who have a variety of issues that we're not even aware of. So there's a lot of factors involved. I understand what the CDC said, but we're looking at the local data, local science, and the local experts.
At the end of the day, it's not an easy decision, I know for sure. Did the district ever consider giving parents the choice for remote learning or in-person learning?
Yes, we discussed that when we were looking at in-person options. We looked at a hybrid with A-B days, half students one day, half students the other day, some remote learning, some choice. But ultimately, as we've already discussed, we landed on virtual learning for all as the best decision.
If we do get the green light to go back to in-person learning after the first quarter of the school year, could parents see that hybrid model being put in place for the district?
If local data, local science, local health department guidelines allow, of course we'd like to have some semblance of in-person learning as soon as possible.
Right. Okay. I know the CDC and other health professionals had advocated for students to return to school in person, and ultimately, what were the major factors that led the district to take its own recommendations for the start of the school year?
Again, we'll emphasize local data, regional data, state data, as we look at these factors to make our decision. And as we progress through the summer, that data was trending the wrong way. When we ended school in May, everybody expected the data to be trending in a more positive fashion by the fall. But we're not seeing that at this point, and we'll just have to continue to adjust as the numbers come in.
Okay. As announced with the plan for 100% virtual learning, the first day of school will be pushed back to August 17th, and teachers and staff will have 3 full days to prepare for virtual learning on August 12th, 13th, and 14th. Some parents worry that these 3 days may not be enough time for teachers to prepare for a virtual learning plan. How did the district decide the right amount of time for teacher and staff preparation?
To try to figure out the right amount of time for staff and teacher preparation is very difficult, but I want our parents to understand, yes, we have these 3 days of professional development for our teachers to start the year, but there is ongoing PD in this plan every Thursday for our teachers throughout the year, because they're going to learn what works well and what doesn't work as well, and we'll be able to make adjustments as we go. There'll be district-led professional development, building-led professional development, teacher-led professional development, and also professional development centered on social-emotional learning. So there'll be ongoing work throughout this time to help our teachers improve on their delivery of instruction.
That's pretty impressive to have those days embedded throughout the week for our staff. That means a lot. Do the students have to make up any of the times that the staff are preparing on the August 12th, 13th, and 14th dates?
No, the state put in these remote learning planning days as student attendance days because they're aware that what we're doing is much different than what we've done the entire history of public education. So they gave us that variance so that kids don't have to make up the days.
Wonderful. Do you have any idea for what virtual classrooms will look like? Will students be able to participate visually and verbally with their teachers' lessons plans?
We'll start with the last question first. Yes, students will be able to participate visually and verbally with their teachers' lesson plans. How that looks is it's going to have a lot of variance depending on grade level, whether you're a pre-K kid or a high school kid in AP English.
Makes sense.
But our teachers are professionals, and they've developed a variety of modes to deliver instruction to try to provide the kids the best learning experience possible.
I've heard of some teachers taking advantage of flipping classrooms. I don't know if you...
Yes, we'll hopefully have some of that going on throughout the district where the teachers provide students the guidance, but the students are really doing the learning and the instruction of the topic to the rest of the group. Yes.
Very cool. Let's talk about innovation learning. Will they still be holding childcare options for students at the Children's Museum with DPS closing its school buildings? Is there anything that you could talk about why the district might have decided it was safe for students to enroll in innovation learning childcare, but not in-person learning?
Well, we're talking about 8,800, making a decision for 8,800 kids when we're talking about the district. And when you're talking about childcare options, it's a much smaller number, much more manageable. And also, there's not the transportation variable. Parents have to provide their own transportation. That was another huge hurdle, is figuring out how to put 50 kids on a bus safely and social distance them. So those are a couple of reasons why innovation learning works at the Children's Museum as opposed to 8,800 kids coming into the building, or 4,400 kids, or 2,200 kids, whatever,
Right.
however you divide them up. It's a much different scale than a smaller group of kids in one building.
And the Children's Museum has larger spaces compared to some of our buildings. So that may make sense for them because they have more room to spread out.
Just spread out,
Yeah.
yes.
Wonderful. Finally, many parents of the school district have praised the decision for 100% virtual learning. What does it mean to you personally, Dr. Frigo, to have their support for this major decision?
Well, personally, this has been probably the toughest summer I've had in over 30 years of education. So for people to voice or write or call and say, we appreciate you, we know it was a tough decision, we think it's the right decision, is very humbling, but also very heartwarming because, as I said, it's counterintuitive for an educator to make a decision where kids won't be coming into a building and being provided instruction and support. So everybody knows I'm a crier, so I don't want to get too emotional about this, but it meant a lot. That a lot of people in our district have come out in support of this decision, and it's greatly appreciated for their understanding and their patience.
Right, yeah.
And I've said that to our staff over and over. This is the year we have to be patient, we have to be flexible, and we have to have a mindset of grace because we're all learning as we go during this school year.
Dr. Frigo, where can parents and other community members go for more information about Return to Learn?
Well, they can go to dps61.org/return to learn and find all their information right there. It's if you go to our website, once you get there, there's on the bar at the very top on the right side, click on that and it'll get you to where you want to be, and you have all the information right there in one-stop shopping.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Dr. Frigo, for your time today. This concludes the episode of Here We Go Frigo. Thank you, Dr. Frigo, for taking the time to answer these questions for our community. And if anyone listening has any ideas for topics in the future for a podcast with Dr. Frigo, please leave a comment or a private message on our Facebook page. And as always, we thank you for listening.